So I think what I'm going to do is start off and just go down the line. David, maybe you can start off. Talk about what the work is that you're doing and how you see, in your case, this notion of sort of sonic control working within the marketplace today.
Sure. So I work for AT&T AdWorks. We're an advertising group within AT&T that works with outside clients. And I run the advertising lab. So we're really looking at what it is, how we're going to use data in the future, how we're going to use all these tools that we come up with. And certainly, we were having a discussion about this last night. There are two kind of natural interfaces right now, voice and writing. And we've seen a lot of interfaces using neither one of those devices. You know, we went to the keyboard. We're still using a QWERTY keyboard that's based on a typewriter format that doesn't have anything to do with QWERTY today. So voice allows us to really create a natural interface with what we're doing. So whether it be asking simple question of Siri to find me the weather or get me locations for something, or Samsung has just announced their voice recognition TV to change the channel and things like that. Really starting to look at how we can bring more of what we do every day into the technology that we use.
Fantastic. And Idan, can you talk about the work that you guys are doing at Boxy right now?
Yeah, of course. So Boxy is a cable alternative. We're trying to kind of envision and allow our customers to get something as close as possible to the cable experience, but also adapted to the way we consume media and content these days. So, I mean, it's very similar to how the interfaces are changing, then the ways that we discover content and the ways that we consume content is changing. From being able to just see what your friends are watching and be able to tune into that, even if it's a live show or just a movie that's on Netflix, or being able to actually discover new things across different services, or actually the Vimeo video that turned viral overnight and you kind of want it popping up to you and seeing it at the end of the day on your TV, or actually taking it with you on your iPad and watching it on the flight while you're on your way to the West Coast. So bringing all of these things together and creating a new service that kind of adapted to the generational shift that we've been seeing happening with the internet in the last 5 years, and how it's merging TV and internet together.
Fantastic. And Brett, talk to us a little bit about Sonar.
Yeah, so Sonar is a mobile application that uncovers the hidden connections you share with people nearby and lets you learn about and discover and connect people near you. So I guess sort of in the same way that the way we discover content is changing, so is the way we discover people. Because basically we've spent the past 10 years uploading our identities to the web, who we are, who we like, where we worked, who our friends are. What's happening now is we're downloading all that information to our pockets and carrying it around with us. So services like Sonar are helping people leverage that information to discover and make new ways of connecting with the people that surround them. So that same technology is also pairing, I guess, this whole social pairing phenomenon, which is now that it's easier to connect, now that we've built these connections, how can we leverage them to more efficiently communicate and more efficiently collaborate on all sorts of different products?
Fantastic. And Michael, tell us a little bit about what's going on with Skillshare these days.
Yeah, so Skillshare is a community marketplace that allows you to learn anything from anyone. The best way to explain it, actually last night I was talking on Twitter, because I guess that's what you do when you work on the internet. It was this company called Branch, and we started talking about like if Facebook created the city and AOL created the roads that allowed you to get to the city, and Path is creating the homes. I replied to that conversation and said Skillshare is kind of creating the schools, on the internet. It's very bottom up. So the best way to think about that is, the entire city of New York, what we can do is turn it to a big campus. So every single person becomes a teacher. Anyone could create a school. Every address and venue turns into a classroom. So essentially that's what we're doing, is just democratizing education and making it accessible to every single person on this planet.
Fantastic. And John, talk about the recent project that you guys launched at Boehringer Ingelheim and how that fits in the gaming for good space.
Maybe I should start by saying Boehringer Ingelheim is a pharmaceutical company. We're a German pharmaceutical company. And sort of my challenge there is how do we take this 127-year-old conservative pharmaceutical company, which is full of bureaucracy and regulations, and try and better serve our customers, essentially, our patients. And one of the ways I'm trying to do that is by looking at what the trends are and what the exciting innovation is out there. And one of the things we're experimenting with is gaming and gamification, and how we can use that practice to help educate and promote better behaviors with our customers. So one of the things we're doing is a game called Serum, which is where you get to play a pharmaceutical company, and you get to heal the world one disease at a time. And you get to play at being a pharma company.
Fantastic. So I think the way that we're going to, obviously, all these guys are involved in very interesting things and are coming at a lot of these ideas from different perspectives. How we're going to run the conversation is I pulled out some, maybe bigger ideas that are weaving all these 5 trends together in some ways, and just kind of open that up for conversation. So the first sort of area that I wanted to talk about, obviously this use of data is sort of running through basically everything that you guys are doing, whether it's at the social level or at the individual level, in terms of how a lot of these services are delivering a better experience. I suppose one of the things I'm curious to understand is how sort of privacy is fitting into that space. And I guess just to add a couple more thoughts there, is the public sort of aware of this sort of shift in the way that data is being used, and are we perhaps giving up too much and not getting enough in return? Is that value proposition there? I mean, obviously in the healthcare space, this is a big concern. Maybe you want to start off on your thoughts and how that sort of plays out.
Well, I think in healthcare we're very aware of privacy and confidentiality of information. Obviously, you have whenever you're dealing with complicated diseases and therapies and patients, then privacy is paramount there. And when it comes to digital and social and those kind of movements, there's 2 worlds that are really sort of almost on polar opposites. So you have this, I mean, I come from very much of a sharing kind of philosophy, so I will happily share whatever. There's a quantified self movement, which is all about measuring your body and sharing that. But at the same time, we have these quite strict regulations. I live in Germany right now, and right now the data protection movement in Germany are trying to ban Facebook pages from companies, because when you like a corporation, it's not obvious what data you're sharing. So we have these challenges of how do these 2 things meet, really, of what's happening in the real world with real people sharing stuff, and then a large corporation like us, how do we respond to that?
So we at Boxy, we recently launched a new service called Boxy Live TV, which is it's a kind of a USB dongle that connects in the back of your box, the Boxy box, and allows you to get over-the-air broadcasting, digital broadcasting that's available everywhere. And the interesting thing is that, for us coming into something like that, so we've started off in a VOD in a manner, or kind of video on demand in a manner that's much more, I'm going to choose what I want to watch, and suddenly we went into a few channels that are in HD, and you're basically tuning into whatever is right now, and it was clear that we need to enrich that data with social information and information about your friends. And what we did is we worked with Facebook and we connected it together, so whenever you're watching something, actually 2 or 3 minutes after you started watching a channel, it goes out and reports, kind of registers it into your Facebook profile that you're currently watching this and this show. And while you're watching it on the TV, or when you go into your guide, you can see exactly what other people are watching, what your friends on Facebook are watching, and kind of where the general mass of people watching now are gravitating to. So it's a great way for discovery. But it was clear that there's going to be privacy issues here. We did it as an opt-in feature, or actually it's as an opt-out feature. So by default, it starts, it's on, it asks you for the first time when you use it, do you want to get out of that? And the way that we kind of mitigated, the difference between sharing your information and not sharing it is that if you're going to share, you're actually going to see the enriched data coming from your social network. But if you're going to hide whatever you're watching, then you're not going to know what other people are watching. And it's interesting because we see about 80% of our users actually opting into this service and preferring to see exactly what, or most of the time, what their friends are watching as well at that time. And I think that's the way to go with it, kind of giving some, but understanding what you're getting back and understanding when you can opt out of it and why.
What is it that's happening now that's sort of leading us to that, where this is becoming a much more natural sort of, I guess, sort of aspect of our behaviors that that sharing is okay? Is it that you're, again, that sort of discovery piece that you guys are delivering?
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of people say, you know, what if I don't want to be found, or I don't want to be found, and that's fine. I mean, Sonar has no intention of finding people that don't want to be found. In fact, the entire point of the service is to help people that want to be found be found. So, tell people here that you're here and this is what you're about, right? So, if you look at all the great social platforms, it's always about giving people a new voice, right? So, blogging was the way to blog, and then there was microblogging, so you had Twitter, and then, you have the one-click tweet, which is the Foursquare check-in, and then you've got the repin. And so what you see is that it just gets easier and easier. Every new big advancement in social technology is about making it easier to share. And so technologies like Sonar just make it easier to share, easier to share. And in this case, we're sharing that you're present, and here's your identity, and you're showing that to the rest of the room, and then you can reap the benefits that come from that. Hey, I'm here. I'd love to connect with any designers, developers, brands in the audience. Not everyone gets to sit on stage, but with Sonar, you can have that in your pocket, and everyone else here is privy to that information.
I was going to say, based on that, based on this divide between those people who want to share and those people who don't want to share, are we going to almost have a situation where you have almost like a dual society of people who are willing to opt into services and give a certain amount of themselves away, and those people who aren't, and then maybe there'll be rewards for.
It's already happening. Yeah. A big trend that I see is there's been racism and sexism and elitism in the past, and we are heading directly into a period where there is going to be striation in society across personal distribution. If you have influence and you have distribution, you're going to get to cut to the front of the line. You're going to get perks. It's already happening. Clout did something with some casino, or I think Wynn Hotels or something. It's not Wynn, it's someone else. If you have a clout,
the Palms Casino and Resort, I believe.
Yeah, if you have a clout over a certain amount, you get upgraded to the suite. So it's coming.
Yeah, because that's something we've looked at with health insurance. Are you going to get cheaper health insurance if you share your data? If you share the fact you're exercising.
That's right. I have to gesture more than you are gesturing, so I can get my. But again,
this is what would get you the cheaper health insurance, right? So kind of the Internet of Things, just being able to measure yourself. Yeah.
But the point is that that's because it has a value exchange for me. And as long as I, consumer, see that value, then it's worth it. So if the value to me is that I need to meet a couple new brands that are here that I'd like to talk to, then it's worth sharing the data. If I can save money on my insurance because they see that every day I've hit my goal, then that's worth it to me. Where, and I use this as a personal example, where it becomes that interesting thing is that if I walk into a grocery store and my phone tells the products in the store that my daughter has a peanut allergy, which she doesn't, but if she did, and it just put the red line in the circle on the price check so that I knew not to buy that cereal, that's great value, and I would probably want that a lot. If, on the other hand, I get to the cash register, and as they're scanning my double-stuffed Oreos, there's a message that pops up on the cash register screen that says, "Hi, Dave, insurance company here. If you continue this purchase, we are raising your rates," or then since that has no value to me, I would be less likely to want to live in that world of shared information. And that's where it really becomes a very complicated thing to do, because what makes me want to share in this environment, in this moment, can be different throughout the next 25 minutes. So think about the number of times you've been to a cocktail party and somebody starts to talk to you and you say in your head, I'm not going to give this person my card, that I don't like them or there's something. And then 10 minutes into the conversation, you go, oh, that's really, I should give them my, we on the fly make these decisions about when we share, when we don't share, and our technology has not yet quite caught up to that automotive purpose so that, when I throw on Cinemax Adult at night, I'm not sure I want that posted to my Facebook page. And I have to really think about that. But, as long as I'm watching the Disney Channel, I'm okay with everybody knowing.
So, didn't you guys just do a new campaign with Foursquare?
We did. Yeah.
So that involves people sharing something new, right? Their location.
It did, without a doubt. And we're about to roll out that test, so we'll see how, what the total response is. But again, I think Foursquare is an interesting thing because it really has created a group of people who love to check in. I mean, we all know the people who check in because they walk past every building from the subway station to their office. We all hate them because that's not right. You should only check in when you're actually someplace. But if people see that $5 off American Express coupon for checking in through Foursquare, that's a value that makes it worthwhile.
And I don't know if you guys can see, but David has a Nike band and a Jawbone up.
I'm testing both.
All right, I want to get Michael involved in the conversation here. So another big idea that we're sort of seeing sort of weave in here is this notion of sort of disintermediation, and I suppose along those lines, how there's this sort of rise of the amateur expert, if you will. So I'm wondering, everything from rethinking the way we deliver education to content to this whole notion of scientific discovery. I'm wondering, Michael, what do you see sort of driving this sort of desire within the marketplace now? Like, why Skillshare now, and where is this heading in some ways?
Good question. I think when I think about the internet and what's happening as of late, I think usually everything is usually very top down. So if you take education, for example, there's a group of guys or females that sit in a room. They say, I think students need to learn math, and they need to learn algebra, and they need to learn Spanish, because everyone needs to learn Spanish. And then they buy the books, and they push that curriculum out. Whether you like it or not, you have to go take that course. What we're seeing with the internet now is with these peer-to-peer models and collaborative consumption, which is what Rachel Botsman writes about, it's a bottom-up driven innovation that's happening. So, if you think about education, it's very student-led, so it comes down to what the student wants. And what I've been seeing over the past couple of years, I kind of trim it down to like 2 or 3 major insights or trends. One is this huge thing around trust and reputation. I think a couple of years ago, if you would have told me that I'm going to fly to San Francisco and stay in some random person's apartment, or rent my apartment to a stranger, I would have laughed out loud. I was like, oh, there's no way that's ever going to happen. But I think as these new communities pop up where trust and reputation is really, really important, you can start sharing things like your apartment or your car or your bike or skills or knowledge or all these other things. And I think that's what Rachel Botsman talks a lot about in her book about collaborative consumption, is that we're moving from a state of hyper-consumption, which is buying a bunch of stuff you don't need, to a state of hyper-sharing. And the internet really facilitates that. The other thing that I've been noticing is what we kind of call internally like this whole notion of micro-entrepreneurship. So these people that are driving this from very bottom up, there's teachers on Skillshare that make over $12,000 a month just teaching. They're making more money teaching than they would ever had teaching in a real setting. And A, they would have never taught in a real setting because they would have to go to school for that, which they never would have. But B, this bottom up allows them to just make a living on what they're passionate about, what they want to share. And you could hear this story in Airbnb or TaskRabbit or Kickstarter or any other thing where it's peer-to-peer. And I think as long as trust and reputation is embedded in a community, those things will happen.
Yeah, just to sort of maybe pick up on that a little bit more, obviously there's this whole status that's attached to a lot of these different services, whether it's I'm always the person that's sharing the best movie recommendations or what have you. I mean, is that the sort of driving force in some ways? I mean, is it this push where suddenly I can sort of take these platforms and then, to your point, suddenly it becomes Airbnb, people are buying new second homes so that they can rent them out in some ways. I guess maybe, and I'll open this up to anyone, like what do you guys see as the sort of driving desire for people to, is it also just the greater good? Is it adding value to the larger space?
I think that in some ways, if you look at this whole notion of like excess inventory and excess resources that can be utilized in some way, in my opinion, Pinterest is kind of the lowest. I'm not saying that in a bad way. It's the lowest level of it, right? Because it allows anyone to sit at home and kind of start repinning and basically just curating these boards, which is a very, very simple task, a very, very simple technically. You don't need to know a lot, but you can focus on the very, very thin, interest that you have in something. If it's kitchen design, to do it yourself, I don't know, I just saw someone that does taxidermy Legos, and just there's all kinds of these tiny taxidermy dolls out of Lego. But suddenly he can actually curate this board that can have thousands of followers, and he feels important, and he gets reactions, and he communicates with them. And in some ways also Tumblr did that with the Tumblr. And I think that's pretty amazing, because kind of taking the very, you can invest anything between 20 minutes or even 10 or even 5 a day to, I'm sure that there's people who are investing hours in it, and they kind of see the reward in that. And you can take it up until the level of someone actually committing to teach a class for this knowledge that he has. Maybe it is in taxidermy Legos, but I think that's extremely interesting.
Go for
I was
it.
going to say, using community for a force for good is something we looked at, and there's a site called Kaggle where drug discovery. Would you trust your drug discovery? Would you trust your medication to crowdsourced discovery, if you like, crowdsourced information? And it's a mathematical equation, basically. A molecule will act in a certain way, yes or no, and you can apply algorithms to that. So we've opened that up on the net, and we've put a whole range of molecules on there, and we've said to people, come up with the algorithms, come up with the maths to help us discover new drugs. So, if we end up with some amazing cures for illnesses and diseases, well, that's fantastic.
Well, that's an interesting segue, because I guess my next question, and I already know what Michael's answer is going to be to this, but so if we're sort of moving away from this sort of top-down approach, what is the role of traditional business, institution, organizations within the space? Obviously, John, like you're saying, they're sort of creating the platform that then, is innovated on top of. But I'd like to hear your thoughts.
So I was joking in the green room that I told him when he asked that the big brands, corporations should just stay completely out of it and just leave us alone. But I was just kidding. But I think there's a lot of things they can do. I think if they notice that communities are really important, and one thing we've been doing with a lot of bigger brands is helping them create schools. If they could figure out a way to get really into it and add utility and value to the community that's getting created, where people might not even notice that they're there, but they're just supporting and they're involved. I think that could work. So that's my answer.
But I think, to John, what you were saying in terms of your model, large companies have distribution channels. They have manufacturing facilities. They have a whole lot of things that if we want to do something on scale, we need. When you want to teach, and I love teaching, I teach a lot. When you want to teach one-on-one, you don't necessarily need scale. You need connection. And that's a different thing, equally as important. But if you want to get to the point where we want a cancer cure, then somebody at some point needs to handle manufacturing, distribution, testing, everything that goes into that. And that's, a thing we can actually bring to the table that's a valuable resource.
And large companies have a lot of information locked up inside of them. And I know there's a temptation for them to overbrand themselves and impose themselves, but if you can tap into that and extract some of that information look at Microsoft. the presentation they made today. If you can get some of that out there as a learning.
Yeah. I was just kidding.
Yeah.
By the way,
We love working with big brands.
but you tell me, whatever, like you're talking and you're telling me, distribution and resources, and I'm just thinking, distribution ready for disruption. You can do it in a million other ways. Manufacturing ready for disruption, like MakerBot, Shapeways, so many other ways that you can actually break that apart. And it will take time. Like probably pharmaceutical is going to be kind of one of the last holy grails. It's just a very, very complicated industry. But on the other hand, I'm just thinking like opening up and I am willing to completely open up my medical record if that's going to somehow collaboratively help other people or help me by finding out, 23andMe and other companies are trying to kind of generate information for you. And a lot of it is based on the fact that they have information on a lot of other people that are opening it up, maybe anonymously, but still. So I think that all of these big companies should really, it will take time, but if you look at it, then compared to the huge, very powerful companies that were here 20 and 30 years ago, slice by slice, we're carving out, and with every aspect that you use to control, it's getting, more democratized and more available through other ways and more specialized ways and more cheaper ways. And all of that is somehow eventually going to disappear.
The challenge, though, is a lot of, I'm with a company that's, 130 years old. And, I'm in the middle of reading the book on Bell Labs. And Bell Labs was a pretty innovative, disruptive environment within a large company designed to do that. The challenge is at some level. So Sonar only works because there's a cell signal, right? So either somebody like an AT&T or Verizon, T-Mobile, whoever, has to provide that service, or each of us have our own cell companies, and we have to figure, and we've gone from those days.
We can go as far as seeing a world where each of our devices in our pockets is a P2P network connecting each of us
Very
together,
possible.
and there's a completely, no antennas around, and only us actually creating a mesh network ad hoc.
I think the point Don's trying to make, which is, I think, what we'll see in the future with the power of the internet is that these bottom-up companies can disrupt archaic institutions that don't want to move or don't want to change. And I think we'll start seeing that, like MakerBot. When Kickstarter raises, and they fund $150 million a year, which is higher than what the US Endowment of Arts gives out, that's really disruptive. And they probably have no incentive to ever change until a company like Kickstarter, ran by 20, 30 guys in the Lower East Side, come around and can disrupt the entire industry. And I think you'll start seeing that in healthcare, in education, in banking, in financial services.
Yes, yeah.
And hopefully
And again,
cell towers.
don't let me say, right, I'm not suggesting that there's always going to be a certain number of large companies that control anything. I think we've seen that in many environments where that, has not stayed.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, but I think with the internet today, it's going to be the most disruptive it's ever been in the history of the world.
So for one, Sonar is looking into mesh P2P type solutions so that it works in the subway. It works in the subway. But where I think that there's hope is that the fact that brands are the largest nodes on the social networks, right? If you look at Facebook, right? Who has 10 million likes? It's Coke and Nike and Adidas, right? So as we're talking about all these new technologies that help foster collaboration and make it easier to collaborate, the way you compete is you already have this audience. How do you leverage the tools that are out there to more effectively coordinate it, and take advantage of it? So it's not just Arab Spring that can take advantage of Twitter. It's what's Pepsi doing with it? So I think you just have to look at the market you're in and figure out how to compete.
All right, guys, always keep them wanting more. I'm going to have to end it here. Thank you all very much.